Episode 44. The house was built in a secluded mountain hollow. While the people inside could hear the alarm and the sounds of fighting, they had no idea what was actually happening outside. So, after finishing all this, Ma Rong planned to send some people out to gather information. And yet, this fat man, who knew no martial arts whatsoever, chose this moment to make his presence known again. Not only did he block any attempt to scout the enemy, but he also used the token to seize Ma Rong's command over these outsider disciples. Then he planned to just hunker down here, burying his head in the sand and doing absolutely nothing. Ma Rong knew full well how crucial it was to understand the enemy's situation. He argued with the man several times, but each time this cowardly, fat bastard used the sect master's token to shut him down. He wouldn't even let Ma Rong go and scout things out for himself. It seems he viewed Ma Rong as just another tool for his own survival. And so, Ma Rong paced around the living room like an ant on a hot griddle, utterly helpless in the face of this clueless fatso. In the Seven Mysteries sect, acting without orders is a grave offense. The lightest punishment is having your martial arts crippled and being expelled from the mountain. The heaviest is a death sentence by beheading.
I know something earth-shattering is happening out there right now. Our sect could be facing life or death. And here I am, stuck and helpless.
Just as Ma Rong was itching to slap his so-called superior to death, Han Li and Li Feiyu, completely unaware of the drama unfolding here, were racing toward the location at top speed. Along the way, they avoided enemy patrols whenever possible, slipping past them and concealing their tracks. They had managed to stay hidden until they were barely a mile from Elder Li's residence. There, a group of men in blue-green robes ran headlong into them, making further concealment impossible. The first direct confrontation with the enemy had finally arrived. A dozen or so men in blue robes, wielding steel sabers, closed in from all sides, trapping them in the center. Judging by their gait, those with a single white line on their sleeves were the weakest in martial skill. The two with double white lines were far more formidable. But the most formidable was the man with 3 white lines and a scar on his face. He was clearly the leader of this group. The scar-faced leader was also sizing up the people he had trapped, a flicker of puzzlement in his mind. The first one was disheveled, dirty and ragged, looking like a mountain cook. The second had a vacant stare and sun-darkened skin, like a peasant with no martial skill. The last was tall and imposing, wearing a bamboo hat, his clothes stained with blood. He was the only one who seemed to have any real strength.
Come on, whoever you are, the Seven Mysteries sect is finished. Surrender now and we'll spare your lives.
Who's going to do it? You or the soul driver?
These must be low-level disciples of the Severed Water sect. I've been hunted by the Wild Wolf Gang for so long. Let me vent some of that frustration on them first, and their weapons will suit me just fine.
With that, he shot out like a rainbow, instantly closing the distance to the nearest figure in green. The man was utterly shocked. He tried to swing his broadsword, but suddenly felt his hand go light. The blade was already in his opponent's grasp. He stumbled back in panic, but it was too late. A flash of white light, and his head was separated from his body. Li Feiyu's movements were a single fluid chain of action, swift as lightning. The remaining men's faces began to change drastically, especially the lead scarred warrior. His martial arts were a cut above the rest, so he knew with absolute certainty that he was facing a master far beyond their ability to challenge.
Everyone retreat. Get out of here if you can. Call the police! Call for backup.
Those words spurred the other green-robed men into action. With a sudden, explosive movement, they broke from their encircling formation and scattered in all directions, fleeing for their lives. Some of them fumbled at their robes as they ran, no doubt reaching for those signal devices. A man in blue robes, embroidered with 2 white lines, was the fastest. In just a few leaps, he had already put several yards between himself and the others. His heart leaped with hope, thinking he might just escape. Then, a chill pierced the back of his neck. The tip of a blade, half an inch long, shot out from his Adam's apple and vanished just as quickly. He was horrified, wanting to cry out, but his body felt drained, turning soft and limp, utterly devoid of strength. He could only watch helplessly as his own form slowly toppled to the ground. Only then did he realize someone had run him through from behind, the blade piercing his throat.
I ran so far, how did I die so fast?
With a final, agonizing effort, he wrenched his head to the side, catching one last glimpse of the world before the end. A shadow flickered into existence behind the green-robed man who had fled the farthest. A single, effortless sword stroke, and the shadow wavered slightly before vanishing once more. Then it materialized behind another fellow disciple, and another flash of white light sliced through the air. And only then did the body of the previous disciple, pierced through the throat by an arrow, fall to the ground like his own, a gurgling torrent of blood bubbling from the wound. Having witnessed it all, the man in green robes died with a peaceful smile. Because he knew he wouldn't be lonely for long, many would soon be joining him. That ghostly black shadow wouldn't spare a single one of them. Golden Wolf Jia Tianlong was brimming with confidence. His normally pale, sallow face was flushed with a few streaks of red from sheer excitement. It's no wonder he looked like that. After all, the Wild Wolf Gang's lifelong nemesis, the Seven Mysteries sect, was about to fall thanks to his meticulous scheming. How could the master of the Wild Wolf Gang not be pleased with himself? He now stood on the mountainside of Sunset Peak, surrounded by many of the Wild Wolf Gang's crimson-armored Iron Guards. These 50 or 60 Iron Guards were his elite troops, painstakingly trained and nurtured with immense effort. Each one was a master of martial arts, and each was fiercely loyal, unwavering in their devotion to him. He had always treasured these men like precious jewels, reluctant to deploy them in everyday skirmishes. Yet now he had brought them all with him, to deter any restless ambitions among the smaller sects. Otherwise, how could the leaders of gangs like the Iron Spear Society and the Severed Water sect have fallen into line so meekly?
Brother Wang, doesn't your Clear Water sect usually steer clear of this kind of trouble? What brings you here today?
That bastard Jia Tianlong has my parents, my wife, and my children. I had no choice but to come, to drag my family into this. He's not afraid of divine retribution. In my opinion, we should let the Wild Wolf Gang and the Seven Mysteries sect tear each other apart. It's best if they're locked in a perpetual struggle, a stalemate. That's the only way small factions like ours can survive.
If Jia Tianlong hadn't acted with lightning speed, seizing the families and children of these faction heads and sweetening the deal with lavish promises, these small and medium-sized gangs would have likely switched sides long ago. Now, however, they all looked utterly dejected. When they looked at Jia Tianlong, it was either with furious glares or with shifty, evasive eyes that refused to meet his. Seeing this, Jia Tianlong gave a mental sneer. As he turned back, his mind began to consider the feasible plans for swallowing up these small and medium-sized sects once the Seven Mysteries sect was taken. Before Jia Tianlong, nearly 1,000 people in motley attire and wielding all manner of weapons were swarming a Seven Mysteries sect outpost in a frenzied assault. Their formation was a shambles, with no coordination to speak of, and they were taking heavy casualties. But Jia Tianlong didn't care, because those currently attacking weren't his Wild Wolf Gang's men, but rather the followers of the Iron Strength Society, the Severed Water sect, and other such gangs. He never expected these men to take Sunset Peak. His plan was to let the allied guilds wear down the defenders' energy, then send in his own elite troops with the repeating crossbows to finish the job. The thought of those military repeating crossbows brought a flicker of satisfaction to Jia Tianlong's face.
The Wild Wolf Gang's overwhelming advantage this time is due in no small part to these military-grade killing tools. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to wipe out the Seven Mysteries sect's negotiation team. And even taking those dozen or so outposts in front of Sunset Peak would have cost the Wild Wolves gang dearly. That would have been a major setback for my plans to swallow up the smaller sects. I didn't lift a finger for this batch of military crossbows. They practically fell into my lap while I was sitting at home.
Every time Jia Tianlong thought of this, a wave of immense satisfaction washed over him. That was 3 months ago. He was at headquarters, planning this operation, when an officer claiming to be a relative asked to see him. Though surprised, he agreed to the meeting. And sure enough, it really was one of his cousins. It turned out that over a decade ago, when the Wild Wolf Gang's predecessor was still a band of mounted raiders, a group of them were recruited into the government's service. His cousin was among them, and yet, after all these years, his cousin had actually managed to climb to the high military rank of deputy general. Now, this cousin of his, a deputy general, happened to be escorting a shipment of supplies to a frontier fortress in Jinzhou and was passing right through this area. Having heard of his close relative's reputation as the leader of the Wild Wolf Gang, he naturally had to pay a visit to this cousin of his. After exchanging heartfelt greetings, the two of them settled in to share stories of their recent years. When Jia Tianlong brought up the recent conflicts and killings with the Qishuan sect, the other man curled his lip and said,
"What's the big deal? Just give me 100 or so repeating crossbows and I can wipe out the entire Seven Gate sect, top to bottom."
Cousin, could you get me some of those crossbows?
The shipment I'm transporting actually contains quite a few repeating crossbows. It's not that I can't give you some, but we'll need some silver to grease the palms of the checkpoint guards, and I can't give you too many.
Jia Tianlong was overjoyed to hear this. He immediately spent over 20,000 taels of silver to acquire more than 300 repeating crossbows from his cousin. He handed them over to his new deputy, instructing him to use them with care. This was the key to their string of victories over the past few days.
It's breached, breached, breached.
A deafening clamor jolted the great leader, Master Jia, from his thoughts. The commotion jolted him from his thoughts. He looked up toward the mountain peak in alarm. The outpost that had once flown the Seven Mysteries sect's banner was now swarming with fighters from those smaller sects and guilds. It really had been taken. Jia Tianlong frowned. That's odd. Given how fiercely the previous checkpoints were defended, this final one should have been the hardest to crack. How did these ragtag troops take it down so quickly?
Could this be some kind of trap?
His expression darkened. Anyone familiar with gang leader Jia knew this was a sign of his displeasure. Offend him now, and you'll die a very ugly death.
Hey, since it's broken, why aren't you moving?
A voice rang out, its tone showing not the slightest respect for the esteemed Chief Jia. Logically, Jia Tianlong should have flown into a rage, but instead, the gang leader turned to the side and replied with great deference.
Mr. Zhang, I feel this breakthrough was a bit too convenient. There might be a trap. We should proceed with caution.
What's there to fear? With me by your side, what can these mortals possibly do to you? Let's go, let's go. I was up all last night, I'm dead tired. Let's finish off these Seven Mysteries sect guys quickly so this old man can get some rest.